Big trouble for nothing. Okay, awesome. Okay, my name is Michael Brasher. I'm a leadership coach in Givers Gain. I'm so grateful to be here with y'all this morning for this workshop. You are the bottleneck, how business owners accidentally strangle their own growth and what we can do about it. I'm a big nerd on this topic. I am passionate about it. And just want to be, real clear. I'm a resource and happy to follow up, do a one-to-one after this with anybody that wants to, and kind of go deeper into the stuff we're going to talk about this morning. And so what are we going to talk about? Right. The idea of this workshop is really thinking about how do we begin with the end in mind as business owners? How do we make sure that the way that we are building our business and the way that we're organizing our time and attention in a day-to-day way is adding up to giving us the business that we dreamed of when we got into this? That's really what we're going to take a look at. Just a little bit for expectations, maybe for like the first half of this time we're together, we have an hour. I'm just going to ask y'all questions and I'm going to ask you to respond in the chat. If you respond in the chat, that will be really helpful. That will make this a more enjoyable workshop for everybody. I will call on a few folks at random to just expound on whatever you put in the chat. And that's just a way for me to try to manage time because we're such a big group. I want to make sure folks can participate, but also that we get done on time. So let's jump right into it. In the chat, tell me why you decided to start your business, right? You gave yourself this huge challenge. Being an entrepreneur is a massive challenge. You said, yup, I'm willing to give myself all this stress. Tell me why. Why did you make that choice? Spite, Amanda. Yes, if you're trying to get me to ask you in a moment, not yet, to expound on that, I'm definitely going to. Um,
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Amanda, you're making me laugh in the chat on several fronts. To be my own boss doing work I love, Jacob, yes, 100%. Most of us, right? I know I could provide better services to my clients. Yep. I love animals and wanted to be my own boss. Yep. Always wanted to see if I could build my own thing, continuing a legacy, boundless opportunity for growth, wanted to build something better than what was out there, to be of service to the collective. My other career path changed with COVID, moved out here to start it with my dad. Combo of education, desire to change, personal interest to help the community. I had a job that I loved and thought was going to be for years and years. And then we got a CEO who was a bully and I couldn't take it. Preach, Ori, probably a lot of us, right? We were working in situations that worked for us until it didn't. And we're like, you know what? I think I'm going to create my own solution here. Mary, I wanted to be able to help couples and individuals with one of the most important and shameful parts of their life, right? Such an important need. We see these huge needs in the community, and we know, hey, my gifts and my passions can show up for this massive unmet need. This is my work, right? I wanted to create my own life mark. Yes, it just happened. I didn't want to interview. I love it. Helping people, BJ. I hit the ceiling level. Always had a dream of entrepreneurship. My personal performance leads to direct results. That's it for me too, Kyle. Make my own schedule, run my business, right? Many of us had this moment where we realized like, hey, no matter how talented or brilliant I am in my job, it's not going to change my family's life, right? When I'm just clocking in for a 9 to 5, the company might make more money. I'm not going to make more money, right? But if I can build my own thing, then my talent and my genius can change my family's life 100%. Okay, Amanda, will you talk about what you mean when you said spite?
I was in a position where I was looking for an esthetician and I was really unimpressed and thought I could do it better. So
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
it's
100.
more than that now, but it started with
Yes.
spite.
I love it. Right. So we have a lot of answers here about freedom and about control, right? In so many ways when we're employed, nothing wrong with that. There's benefits to it, but we sacrifice control, right? But when we go in to build our own business, there are other sacrifices, but we're really looking for control and freedom in so many ways in our life, right? And yet, how many of you, like, raise your hand, if you relate to that saying where people are like, nobody works more and harder than somebody that owns their own business, right? We're years in and a day off is scary sometimes, right? Vacations can be scary. Right. So we set out with this idea of like, I want freedom and I want control. And then so many times we find ourselves, right? If I was a barber, for example, and I got tired of my boss and I said, you know what, I can do this better. When I was a barber, I got to just be a barber, but now I'm the barber, I'm the manager, I'm operations, I'm admin, I'm my bookkeeper, right? And so it can turn into a really demanding situation, right? We start our business looking for freedom and we accidentally build something that cannot survive without us. So let's talk about it. How do we end up with a business that is trapped in owner dependency? How do we end up in a business that's trapped? It might not be you. I'm not assuming it's you, but how do people end up in that situation, building a business with freedom in mind and then finding themselves in owner dependency? Okay, I'm catching up on the chat. Don't delegate tasks. Owner not willing to delegate. Fear of losing control. Jason, thank you. That's a big one. We don't feel we have the time to train people. Jenny, how many relate to that? Big time, right? Don't delegate. Don't want to pay for help. Big time. Not enough funds to hire. Yep. Delegation coming up a lot. We aren't willing to trust others with our business. Great, Mary. That's a big one. The fear of trust and depending on other people is a big part of it. No systems, no help. Absolutely. Most people don't have a business plan, don't have SOPs, don't know how to hire, to delegate. All those things, Ray. 100%. We're going to talk about most of that today. If you want it done right, do it yourself club. Big time. Yes. Lack of delegation skill, worry of trust with your employees, with customer relations. Yes. Right. We all hear that saying, nobody's going to care about your business as much as you do, right? And there can be some wisdom in that, and there can also be some ways that that limits how we're thinking about our business and limits what's possible. Staying a solopreneur. I won't even trust my boyfriend to help me in my business. Let's go. Didn't make a plan to start with and grew quickly. Yes, BJ, that's a big one. Um, no time, end up doing all the jobs, so you're left with no time to develop systems. Absolutely, Kathleen. We're going to talk about that. Finding others with the same values, work ethic, skills, and goals. I love it. Hannah, that's such a big part of it. We'll talk about that. Diminishing other areas of our life and elevating the biz over even family and health. Come on, Mark. Absolutely. Quality proficiency. Yep. Great. Yeah, I think it's all these things, right? Sometimes I think it grows quickly, maybe exactly what BJ said. We didn't start with a plan. And then next thing you know, there's just too much to do, right? I think all of us can relate to that. There is just so much to do, and it becomes very hard to see the leverage of how do I create the space. I don't feel like I have the space to do these higher level activities that would get some of this weight off of my back, which, spoiler alert, to get to the freedom, to get to the things we want to, we got to get some of the weight off of our back. That's the truth. That's what we're going to talk about here this morning. Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk about it. What are some of the negative consequences um, or the costs of building a business that is incredibly owner dependent? I see you, Ori, no sweat. Um, no life, no free time, burnout. Yes. What else? What are the downsides? What are the downsides of building your business in this kind of way? Frequent anxiety. Yep. Not serving clients as well as you could. Great. Yes. No vacation time. Always answering phone, always on. Absolutely, right? No time to actually recover, right? Which I don't know about y'all, but I need to recover to be a kind person to people, right? Stress. Yeah. Never being able to grow. Yep. Yep. Yeah, what if something happens to me, right? It's hard to have a real plan for sustainability, right? Because it's all going through me. Um, okay, yeah. Volunteers only. Always on for sure limits. Emergency mode becomes frequent. Yeah, living in crisis, lack of concrete schedule, missing jobs or losing out on jobs due to poor time management. Thank you, Mike. That's exactly the kind of stuff I want to think about too. No time for important people. Yeah, and so all of this is great. All of it's true. It's and it all deteriorates the business. Um, yes. Yep. And what I want to say, right, is like just to the business, there are a bunch of negative consequences just to the business. Of course, we're whole people and you matter and I matter. And how am I going to scale? How am I going to scale my business when everything goes through me? Right? How am I going to train and onboard a team when I don't have anything written down? Right? So then training, if I don't have anything written down, then training becomes a nightmare. Right? So then I'm like, well, I don't have time to train somebody, right? Because it just means I'd have to teach them everything that lives in here, and I don't know how to do that. That's overwhelming. So I'll just keep doing this, right? It's hard to expand our business into new regions, right? Into new markets. Quality of our services will go down eventually. It's not sustainable, right? One other thing I think that's important to think about, we this isn't for everybody here. I know that, but I just want to name it because it's for some folks. Some of us start a business with the idea that I'm going to sell this business one day. This might be a part of my retirement plan. Um, and if I have a business that runs 100% through me, that is not a sellable thing at all, right? If it's all about me, if my business is 100% the Michael Brasher show, that's not anything that I can sell. So I think we can see, right? It limits our growth. Um, let's keep going. Okay, so this might seem kind of like a counterintuitive question, and I actually think it's pretty important for us to name it. What do we like about building our business in this way? What are the benefits? What do we get out of it? Simplicity, yup. I get to do it my way, Jenny. No lies detected. Full blown. The buck stops here. Yep. We know who's responsible. Self-satisfaction, control. Yep. Yeah. I can do it my own way. Creativity. Yep. We don't have to face the fear of failure. Go, Mary. Mary, will you come off mute and talk about that? How could that be a way that like this is meeting our needs?
Um, I think it's just the fact that it's the tendency to play small. If we don't have to actually expose ourselves and our vulnerabilities, then we don't risk being vulnerable. We play small because it makes us feel safe. But there on the other side of that, if we grow, what if we grow so big that the success is just too big for us to handle and then we fail? Or, so it's better to just play small, have, 4 or 5 clients, really serve them and do that really well, and then we don't ever have to risk the failure of growing to $1 million business or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's a good thing for us to name that can be a big part of it, right? It's just scary. It's way safer. Just keep it all about me. I run things through me. It's scary to trust other people. I don't want to, you know? So it's like, okay, you don't have to, right? Um, Yep, you own every task and interaction with customers. Something that got said the other day, is that owners who have been in the trenches are better owners. right? As opposed to owners who have never been in the trenches. And they don't really understand, it's like maybe they've never done direct service or production. And then they're kind of leading the company in a way that's detached and doesn't resonate with folks that are actually producing. So I think that's a great point. Yeah, great. A ton of great stuff in. Um, yeah, it's quality control. It's easier to ensure consistency. There's less risk. And the other thing I want to say, and again, this is more just kind of on the psychological side, you know, how many of you know it can be like addictive to be busy? Right? It can be addictive to have bad boundaries. Uh-oh, sorry for saying the quiet part out loud. It can be really addictive. There can be a lot of pleasure in having really poor boundaries and just like loving to tell people how busy I am, and it helps me feel important. That's an easy trap. There's something seductive there, right? Where it's just like, I'm so busy. I have so much to do. I do everything. It's easy for us to kind of fall into like a little bit of martyrdom there, and it gets super rewarded and juiced up in our society. They're so busy, they do everything, they wear every hat. And I'm not saying that like we can't, it's like if you're like, no, that works for me, that meets some needs, and I'm okay with that, that's okay, and I'm understanding I'm never going to be able to do certain things with my business. Like get it off my back and take awesome vacations where I know my company's making a ton of money while I'm gone, where there's people in my company that can make me more money than I can make. Right. To me, that's like a part of the dream. That doesn't have to be everybody's dream, but it's important to understand there are some of these trade-offs. And I think it's just important to know. Yes, I'm reading and loving what people are putting in the chat. It's important to know that these kind of self-limiting habits can be like deeply seductive, meet a deep need of ours. I think it's just good to expose that. Say it's like I do my business like this because it meets some needs of mine. Because if I'm going to think about changing that, it's important to acknowledge it, the way I've been doing it was meeting some needs. Okay. So let's think about this. If your business evolved in such a way that it was no longer totally dependent on you, or another way I might say this is if your business just took its next evolution of scalability off of your shoulders, whatever that looks like in your particular business. Talk to me about what it would look like. What would it mean? What would it look like? What would it mean if your business took the next step in its evolution away from owner dependency and towards scalability? Having the right support so that I can be free to market and grow, right? Like one thing that is so huge here is I could get freed up to just do the things I'm great at. That's an awesome step in our business. Where I'm just going to do the things I am awesome at and talented at, and I'm going to have other people do the things I'm not so good at or I don't enjoy. Um, it would look like someone else's business. Okay. More time to work on my business instead of in my business, more flexibility in my personal time. I love it, Ashley. That's it. That's what we want to talk about. How do we work on our business more and more? Doesn't mean we have to totally not work in our business if you like that. But I think it does mean like building a business where it doesn't require me to do everything. Um, Spending more time with family, freedom traveling. Not thank you, Amanda. Great. I'm not sure I can even conceptualize it. That's an important step. We're gonna talk about that. Great, Mary. Same thing. I'm not sure I can see it. Good. Great insight. I could focus on client sales. I'd have some employees, admin folks to help. Great. And someone to dig holes for me. I start. Okay, great. Yes. I only do what I want to do. Yes, Mark. Yes. Better, more balanced scheduling, not at seasonal, help in higher impact matters, and let the little stuff handle itself with colleagues. More time to take on more rather than worrying about the point when I can't take on more. Great. Being able to work on strategy, focus on the green time versus the red non-money admin time. Great. Yes, exactly. Good, Laura. Great. Yeah, Brenda, I think what if you don't want to grow to to have to hire people but want to grow sales? We can talk about that. We're going to talk about a little bit what some hiring strategies can be, because I think it's important. We don't all run the same business, not all of us are dreaming of building some massive thing. And I think that's okay. There's going to be bits and pieces as we go here that you can take for you and think about what it could look like in your business. Okay, so we're getting ready to make a pivot here. We're going to talk about solutions, but what I want to acknowledge that I'm so grateful for, several of you already put it in the chat, and it is such an awesome piece of self-awareness, is that sometimes we're dealing with a failure of imagination. And I think that's an important thing to know. Kind of to talk more about this topic in particular is beyond the scope of this workshop, but I want to pause here and name it, that we get mental mindset limitations, right? I heard somebody say once, the hardest thing I ever did was not make $1 million. The hardest thing I ever did was believe I could make $1 million, right? Because if I cannot imagine it, if I can't imagine a business that thrives without my life being on fire, if I cannot imagine that, the odds of me building it are really low. And so sometimes I actually need to put in the time to develop the imagination, to develop the mindset, to develop the belief, right? I think Henry Ford said it, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Right. And so if somewhere deep down, like we can even think, what are some of those deeply ingrained beliefs? If I don't exhaust myself every day, I won't make money. That's a belief some of us have inherited. We've developed over the years. It's subtle. I might not even know I have it, but if you follow me around and watch my choices, you say, wow, Michael obviously has that deep seated belief. I can't trust others. I cannot depend on others, right? That's a deep seated belief, right? Might go back, might be some trauma in it. But if I have that belief, that might make it really hard for my business to grow and be successful in some ways that otherwise very naturally could. Great. Right. So if somewhere deep down in us, we believe it has to depend on us, it always will. So we're going to move on from that part and talk about solutions, but I just want folks to acknowledge that and just acknowledge, like, yes, Mary, our core childhood wounds still show up as adults, big time, right? If I have a belief, I can't count on anyone but myself. It's the one I mentioned earlier. Nobody's ever going to care about your business as much as you. That might be true to an extent, but some people use that kind of a belief to justify playing small, right? Building a business that they hate. That belief justifies their habit of building a business that they don't actually enjoy being a part of, right? And so while there's some truth to it, right? Nobody's going to care about your business as much as you. Aren't there people that hire amazing, talented people who make their business successful every day? They find their motivations, they learn how to train them, they teach them the requisite skills, and then they go on big vacations and the person sells more than they could have sold on their own, and the company makes money while they're not there. So that happens, right? Even though it's true, other people might not care as much. Okay, so I'm going to move on, but I think for the important part here is, like, I want to invite y'all to think about where you are on this. Do I have any beliefs that are kind of helping me justify building this company in a way that actually isn't the one I dream about? Okay, so I'm going to propose a solution here that I think is, I use this all the time with businesses. I've seen it all the time. I super believe in it. I'm a big nerd about it, and we'll spend the rest of our time talking about this. Okay, so every scalable business gets strong in 6 core areas. This is what we're going to talk about for the rest of our time. Vision, people, data, issues, process, traction. We're going to spend time going through all 6 of these. A lot of this is from Gino Wickman's book Traction in the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and also Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited. Those are 2 really big influences on how I try to work with businesses. And so if you're familiar with them, you'll see this stuff here. So as I go through each of these, I'm going to kind of offer a little bit of teaching of each of the 6 points, and then I'll pause and I'll pause for questions or comments. And so feel free to put stuff in the chat, and I'll just kind of manage time, and we can take a little break to talk about each of these. Okay, so here's the basic idea, right? When these elements of a company are weak, it puts a lot of pressure on the owner and the founder, right? And you become the constraint. In startup phase, it's okay in startup phase that everything goes through us as a business owner, right? We don't have the resources to build a team, to grow, and these things, right? And so how do people in startup, how do founders make their business grow? Well, here's what we do. Blood, sweat, tears. You know, we cold call, right? We roll up our sleeves. We make the business grow through sweat. That is the truth. That's really all we can do, mostly as founders. And that's okay. But so then the idea is let's make the startup phase as short as it can be, you know? Like most businesses don't get to skip that phase, but let's do what we can to not make it last for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Because I don't want to be giving blood, sweat, and tears and making it grow on deep effort indefinitely. Right. And so at a certain point, that's an okay thing. And then at a certain point, we are the bottleneck in our business, right? And so when these 6 elements become really strong, what these 6 elements do is they begin to lift the weight of the company off of Michael. And now I'm an important element, but I am not the company. And that's a good thing. And now I can sort of shape, do high level activities, focus really on my strengths and my genius, and guide the company in a more of a leadership perspective and less of an employee perspective. So let's talk about vision. And you know what? Give me 1 second because I need to, I want to make sure I'm looking at my notes here. When I say vision and what I'm talking about here, I just want to be so clear. I'm being, I'm talking about something very practical and like a sheet of paper. Is what I'm talking about. Having a sheet of paper that everybody in the company has, right? That we've created together. We've written down. That's really what I mean. We've written down our vision in painful detail, and everybody has it, and everybody contributes to it. We revise it regularly, and we use it all the time to make decisions. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So let me tell you an activity that I often do with organizations. I'll meet with the leadership team, get everybody in a room, and I'll say, everybody take out a sheet of paper, and privately, I want you to write down if this company is wildly successful, you know, everything breaks right for you. Everything goes exactly how you wished it would go. 10 years from now, I want you to write down in painfully vivid detail, be thorough, be exhaustive, what this company is going to be like. I'm talking about the color of paint on the walls. How many employees work here? What are their positions? What are the benefits? What is your market share? Let me check my notes here. What is revenue? What is profitability? What's your number of clients served? What's your number of products sold? Programs innovated, operations scale. So I have everybody write this down on their sheet of paper, right? And then I have each of them read it out loud. And y'all, you would have your mind blown by how often they have pretty divergent views of what success was. So a whole leadership team, all full-time working in a company, entirely different visions of what the destination is. Right. So if me and 5 people are all in a rowboat and we're trying to go in different directions, what's going to happen? And yet so many times in our companies, this might seem like, I feel like maybe perhaps this could feel like such a basic step that people skip it. It's too basic. We take it for granted. Of course, we all know what success means. Well, we skip this step, then everybody has slightly different visions of the destination. So everybody's not rowing in the same direction, right? So we write this down, right? What is the 10-year target? right? So that's that question I just asked, right? We write that down, the 10-year dream, big, hairy, audacious goal. If we were on track for that 10-year dream, now I want everyone to write down, where will we be in 3 years? Okay. So if it's April 2026, I want you to imagine the date's April 2029. Write it down. Where are we going to be 3 years from now if we're on track to hit that 10-year target? Okay, great. If we're going to do that, what do we need to do in the next 365 days to be on track? What's going to be true 365 days from today if we're on track, right? So having a really clear vision in writing, it's shared by all, it's used to make decisions. That is vision. Anybody have any questions or thoughts on vision before I move us on to number 2? Yeah, just catching up on the comments. Yes, Amanda, it's true. It's true. And I think that's true for a lot of us, right? We're just worried about trying to make enough money. And that can make it hard to think about the bigger vision. Yes, Laura, nonprofits kind of have to do it. It's so true. I used to work in nonprofits, but so many businesses don't. It's true. Yes, Mary, people don't have a shared vision in their lives, and they're wondering why things are going left. Yes, Kyle, success is subjective. You're making it objective and goal driven. Goal driven. Yes, great question, Ashley. The question is like, do I just do this by myself if you're solo? And I'd say yeah. I'd say yeah. I mean, I use a specific worksheet that I'm happy to share with you that gives you all the things that you want written down. Um, some folks do it with a whole leadership team. Some places do it with the entire company. Let anybody who's on staff contribute. Um, yes, Lori, it's like a roadmap and helps to see where to go. Yeah, so Lori, if I can put you on blast, Lori, Lori's been working with me and through this process for a while.
Yes, we
You
have.
want to share anything, Lori?
It made a big difference just to be able to see where we can go in 3 years, 10 years. I mean, you can see it. It is like a roadmap. I mean, if you don't have something to look at, I think you get lost and you go the wrong direction, right?
Yep. Yep, 100%. And yes, Legina asked, can I share the worksheet with the group? So at the end of our session today, you're going to leave with this, I believe, I'm biased, an awesome tool. Um, and basically you're going to get an email from me if you decide you want to use the tool. And then I'm happy to share it with you. I think that's the most efficient way. Okay, let's keep going here. People, this is so important. Now, I'm going to talk about this in two totally divergent ways because I just want to acknowledge some of us are in a situation where our business already has staff, and some of us are like, it's the me show. So no sweat. But I think how we talk about this component is different. But look, can we all just agree to one thing? The most amazing results of all human endeavors come from awesome teams, right? Amazing teams. And I do think it's one of these areas where as solopreneurs, I see so many folks who are certain they can't have a team. And I don't think that's true. And so I'm going to like press you a little bit on that. It's a hill I love to die on, but we could talk more about it. So right people in the right seats, right? We need an exceptional team. So first of all, if you are working at a place that has a team, what do I mean when I say the right people in the right seats? So first of all, who's the right people in your company? The right people in your company are people who share your core values. Okay. Now, if you've already done the vision component, that's step one for me, you should do the vision component, then you know what your core values are. That's a part of what's on that vision document. These are our core values. This is what they mean. These are our standards. This is our DNA. It's who we are as an organization, even if it's only just me. And that means you cannot be on this team unless you love these values naturally on your own, unless they show up big in your life, right? Because I can train people in skills oftentimes. I cannot train people in values, right? I can't train you to consider things important that aren't important to you. So we hire and we fire around values. That's the right people. If they don't have your values, they're the wrong people. Um, and I see it all the time where companies are like, they have somebody on their team that is deeply out of alignment with their values, and it causes so many problems. And the business owner is telling themselves, we have to have this person for whatever reason. No, you got to have people that share your values. That's right, people, right seats. So here's what the right seat means. It means the role that they have in your company. We say GWC, the role they have in your company, they get it. I understand what my role is. I get it. I get it. I don't think it's something different. I know exactly what you want me to do. So that's the G. I get it. W, they want it. They're like, yes, I love doing that role. I'm not biding my time because one day I think I'm going to get a different role. I'm not like, I'm willing to do this role, but it's not really what I'm like. No, that's what they want to do. They want to do it. Right. And third, the C, they can do it. They're capable. It's their capacity. They have the skill set to execute on that job. So GWC, right people, they share my core values, right seats, they get it, they want it, they're able to do it. The other component for those of us who are solopreneurs, hire slow, fire fast, big time, big time, Amanda. I've done disastrously on that. I've learned that the hard way, like so many people, but not anymore. Not now. I follow that very religiously. So if you're a solopreneur, this is what I want to pitch to you. One of my favorite things to do, some of you in here know it because I've done it to you, is to try to sell folks on the idea of hiring at least a virtual assistant, an administrative assistant, right? So think about this. If there are folks who are trained to be virtual assistants in other countries, and the amount of money that they need to make for you, it's wildly affordable. For them, it's life-changing money, right? It's money that will change their family's life. They're trained and they're skilled to do tasks in your business that do not require you and are high leverage tasks, right? So what I like to say, folks, if you hire a VA in another country and pay them $5 to $10 an hour, call it $10 an hour, they're doing 5 hours a week for you. It's pretty minimal. That's 20 hours a month. That's $200 a month. So for $200 a month, would you pay somebody to make sure they do all your social media, for example, if that's something you don't want to do? To handle CRM communication, to update client files, right? To answer phones. Maybe, like there's productive sales lead generation work that you could be doing, but you don't have time to do it. You know what I mean? You're just like, it's stuff that's on your long-term list. Like one day when I'm not the busiest I've ever been before, I'll do these things. Well, what if you had somebody who just for 5 hours a week was like, hey, I'm going to crush that list for you, right? For $200 a month. I think a lot of us would say like, yeah, that's worth it. And so I offer that as a way, again, to push on the mental model where we tell ourselves it's impossible for me to have help here, right? Because I do think like if we're going to move to where our business isn't crushing us, it's going to take help. It's going to take a team. Just check in the chat. Where are they at? Yeah, Fiverr. There's another one. The one that I used is onlinejobs.ph. It does pay. You do have to pay to use the board. It's like a job board, but you can pay for it for 1 month and then cancel it. And you can post on it for free. You just can't interact with the candidates unless you've paid for it. But it's all trained VAs from the Philippines. And they bid on your job description. So you put up the job description and then you have 20 people say, I can do it for this much. I can do it for this much. You look at resumes, you do interviews. So that's how I did it. I actually, and Tiffany, I'm glad to share it, and anybody else, I have a little playbook I've created about how to do that. Yeah, 100%, Amanda. So Amanda said social media consistency is absolutely my weakness, but I've been really underwhelmed by the people I've contracted with to do it in the past. I would basically echo that. So what I found, at least with my VA, is that I need to really train him on exactly what I want him to do. Because I think people that sell you that they know how to do it, I too have been overwhelmed. So with my VA, I've given him literally every step. Um, Other thing I'll just throw on too is like I don't make any of my PowerPoints. I don't make any of my flyers. That's the kind of stuff, right? I got a feature presentation coming up in BNI. I take a walk around my neighborhood. I talk a voice memo into WhatsApp and I send it to my VA, and then he sends me a beautiful, thoughtful PowerPoint because I don't want to create PowerPoints. Um, Love it. Legina says, but what if you cannot let outside your office have access to client information? So there is a barrier there. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. We talked about some workarounds, and without knowing more about exactly some of your limitations, Legina, I think part of it though is trying to curate a list of the things a VA could do. We had one person who, because of her industry, it's so regulated, her VA could not work inside her business. One of the things that we had talked about, and she said, like, it was something she really wished she had done, is I had recommended to her start an LLC just for your public speaking. She's a wildly talented public speaker. And then the more her public speaking, though, it really benefits this other heavily regulated business that she has. So the VA couldn't work in her heavily regulated business, but he could work in her public speaking LLC and spend all of his time booking her public speaking jobs and getting her on podcasts. That's something I have my VA do in all his spare time. Go find podcasts for me. I don't want to do it. I don't want to fill them out. I don't want to look for them. But it benefits my business. When I go on podcasts, I get clients. Okay, I'm probably taking too long here. Let's keep going. That's people. Data. Okay, I know some people, when I say data, they get excited, and some of you are like, oh gosh, I'm gonna go to sleep until this section's over. Okay, just hear me out. Hear my pitch on data. I think if you know me in the rest of my life, I'm not like the most data obsessed person. Um, right. It's the issue of like you cannot manage what you don't measure. And I think a lot of companies, their resistance to data and measurement is actually, I'm going to be rude here, it's about their devotion to ambiguity and vagueness because they hate being accountable, right? If it's a number, if my goal is I'm going to do better, then I can give myself a pat on the back. I think I did better, right? If my goal is I have to close, you know, 41% of my sales presentations this quarter. Hey, it's done or it's not, isn't it? There's a lot more exposure in thinking about numbers. So that's kind of my big picture pitch here. So here's what I would say. If I dropped you off on a desert island tomorrow and I said, hey, every week I'm going to deliver you a set of numbers that are going to predict how well your company is going to do at the end of the quarter. And every week I'll deliver those numbers to you. There'll be some numbers from sales, some numbers from marketing, some numbers from financial management, and some numbers from your operations. What are the handful of numbers that you would want to look at every week that would help you? You'd be like, "Ooh, I know exactly where this company is headed. I'm on the desert island. I can't do anything about it, but when I see those numbers each week, I know." Right? And that's what we want to build. It's a scorecard. We want to build a little scorecard that we take a look at every week. So let me give you an example when we think about how this can be helpful for a scorecard. What we have is lagging indicators and leading indicators. Okay, so what's a lagging indicator? A lagging indicator tells me what just happened. A profit and loss sheet is a lagging indicator. Why? Because it tells me where, like, what happened with the money, right? It's really helpful. But if I need to not have a disastrous quarter financially, a profit and loss is only going to tell me you did have one. That was a disaster, all right, right? And so a leading indicator is something that predicts what's going to happen. So I'll give you an example of a leading indicator, just totally made up stuff here. Let's say that I need to close 5 sales a month to hit my financial goals for the quarter, to hit my financial goals for the year, to be on track for the 1 year, 3 year, 10 year, right? I need to hit 5 sales a quarter, or I mean a month. So in order to hit those 5 sales, if I work back, I might know, okay, well, actually, what I'm going to need is I need 50 leads. Because if I have 50 good leads, real leads, I know that I'm going to schedule 30 of them for an appointment. I'm going to schedule 30 of them for a sales call. Okay. And I know if I schedule 30 of them for a sales call, honestly, maybe it's like 20 or 15 are going to show up. Right. And if I have 15 presentations where I make the presentation live to the client for my product or for my service, I know that I'm going to have 5 buyers. Right. And so I can do that math and I know, okay, I need 50 good leads a month. Right. And so, then I'm checking my weekly scorecard and I'm looking at how many leads I have so far for the month. Maybe I'm 2 weeks in and I'm looking at my leads and I'm like, if this is where my leads are, I have 0% chance based on my knowledge of my business, my sales close rate of hitting this thing. Right. So that's an example. Right. It could also be like different aspects of your operations that predict client satisfaction, right? That predict successful cases, right? I know that when we do things this quickly or when this process happens in this way, that our client satisfaction shoots up, which leads to referrals, all these other things. And I know that when we're hitting it below this threshold, our clients are not that happy and they're not going to refer to us. So it's just understanding where are the different aspects of your business that predict success. Lori, it helps to see what we are missing and accountability on others. Great. Okay, Lori, I see you. A profit and loss can be a leading indicator, especially for folks who have a lot of seasonal changes. Data can help guide what to do next. It doesn't always work out this way, but it can. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Managing daily productivity. Absolutely. Like, what are the day-to-day output that predict how successful I'm going to be? Great. Conversion rate, leads coming in from where? Kathleen, I feel you. My marketing support person always asks me about the data, and I'm like, I haven't looked. I'm sure plenty of us relate about that. Yes, Tiffany, we can talk more about podcasts. Great. So Ashley, going back on people, found the right person for bookkeeping. Can I do it? Yes. Do I want to? No. I want to do the tasks I like doing in my business. Exactly. There was a time where I was trying to make myself do bookkeeping. My coach told me, hey, Michael, you can spend 10 hours a month, do it poorly and suffer and cry a lot, or you can pay this lady $85 and she's going to do it in 30 minutes joyfully and move on with her life. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I should probably pay that lady $85. It's actually pretty expensive for me to do 10 hours a month bookkeeping. Okay, let's keep going on process. A lot of y'all hit on this earlier, right? So what is a process? I talk about this as a core process. It's pretty basic, but basic doesn't mean easy to create. Here's what we're talking about. I look at the core operations in my business. Okay. I look at the core operations in my business, specifically the ones that produce a unique outcome, right? It's like the value proposition. What are the operations in your business that produce a unique outcome, that make your company unique? Agree to what they all are with our team or with myself. These are kind of the key ones. And then I'm going to write down at a high level the steps of how I produce those outcomes. This is the magic of my business, like what I think makes my business unique, right? So how do you get that unique outcome? And I like to talk about it like this because many people want to write a 500-page SOP, which that's as good as not writing it because nobody's reading that. Nobody's using that. You cannot train people with billion-page documents. You might feel great about the exhaustive detail, but it becomes as good as not having it because it's just too much. And I know that it's a hard to find this sweet spot. So I recommend document the 20% that produces the 80%. It's just like, yes, there's always going to be exceptions and everything's unique and every case is unique. But what's the big picture activities, the steps in the process that produce most of the results, right? So it's like 8 steps to pricing, right? 8 steps to our sales conversion process, to the production process, right? So we agree what the steps are. We write them down. And then here's the last part that is critical is everybody follows them. That's the trick. It's no good to have everything written down in these processes if everyone doesn't follow them and do things the same way, right? And then when we have this all right, how much easier is it to train people, to bring people in, right? To replicate myself so that I can move up to higher value activities, right? So we have to have processes. The questions I have here is, could someone else deliver your service product in your way without you? Great, Amanda, outsourcing the bookkeeping. Yes, I'm so here for that. Anybody got questions or thoughts on process before I keep us going? Really critical here, right? When we sell our business, this is what we're selling. You know, there's more to it than that too, but if we're being simplistic and in essence, like I'm going to hand this buyer a book and it tells them how to do everything in the company. I'm going to hand a new employee a binder and it tells them how everything in the company works. Like this is it. This is definitely a difference. I do have a favorite way to document, Ashley, and I actually it's another thing I can share. Because I have a little process that I recommend and use. How does a coach do this? So I think again, part of it is just thinking about like, and it can take time too as a coach, Mary. I'll say that since we're both coaches, it's like to understand for yourself, like what is your kind of like secret sauce process that you put clients through at a big picture level. And I think it's just like experimenting with drafts and trying to write it down. And again, you want like less than 8 steps. 8 steps. And then under each step, you can be like, here's the 5 bullet points of how I achieve this step, high level. But the idea, right, is you're experimenting with writing a training manual so that you could hire another coach and feel confident that they could mostly do it the way that you do. Nobody's ever going to be you, right? So you have to figure out like what's close enough. And I think we do have to be willing to figure that out as business owners. It's too easy to say, well, nobody's going to do it like me. So I insist on jamming up my business and exhausting myself. Like you can do that, but my suggestion is like, no, find like what's close enough. And I think there is close enough, and train somebody else in how to do it. Yeah, yeah, right. As a photographer, I'm not like gonna train someone else to do it, and I think that's totally fine. Um, questions to think about is like, could you ever want to train somebody in your sales process? I think that's a great one for solopreneurs. Training a part-time, I think you can train part-time virtual employees to do your sales process, again, if you have it written down. I think part of it, just to give an example, I have a friend who he's an electrician. His company blew up so fast, scaled so quickly. It's really successful. He's making a ton of money. It's awesome. But you know what? I hang out with him, and guess what? He never takes one AirPod out. Anybody know why? His phone never stops ringing with his dozens of employees who need to access the institutional archive. Guys, guess where the institutional archive is? It's in my man's brain. And that's so unfortunate for him, for his family, for his friends. He's making too much money. He's being too successful to not answer their calls. But everything that passes a certain threshold of expertise, which is a part of what makes his business great, is he has a threshold of expertise that's beyond what the market generally is providing. They just have to call him all the time. And he's doing that. But what he's going to have to do to take his life back is take everything here, write it down in a way that's accessible and useful for others. Yeah, can also be a part of succession planning, even if it starts small or with a partner, similarly minded competitor. BJ, I love that. You have to empower others to do your job. That's really it, Laura, 100%. Okay, let's keep going. Issues. What am I talking about here? Because this part is probably the thing that sounds vaguest, most vague. So what I'm saying is problem solving. That's what I'm talking about when I say issues. Here's the deal. Companies that are great, one of the defining factors of amazing companies is that they're great problem solvers, right? A great problem solver doesn't have to live through a problem hundreds of times, right? That's what I mean when I say turn pain into wisdom. Cool. This thing hurts. It's not working. I'm suffering. Let's figure it out and solve it once, right? Which doesn't mean a part of the solving process might be trying a solution that doesn't work, right? But we're solving problems. If you work at a place where people say, I hate meetings, here's a clue. You probably don't solve problems in your meetings. Because you know what? Solving problems feels amazing. When people say this meeting could have been an email, what they're saying is you made us come together to report out. That's boring. We don't want to come together to report out. That doesn't mean it never has a place, but great meetings, they're alive with energy where it's a collaborative process and people solve problems and it feels good. If people go to your meeting and solve important problems, they will leave and be like, that was an awesome meeting. So when I'm talking about solving problems, here's what I mean. Let me check my messages. Hang on. Got it. Okay. Chrissy checked in with the time. Thank you, Chrissy. Okay. This is what we're talking about. Really just a few basic steps here. One, we identify what's the root cause of a problem. And that actually takes some time. And so really what we need to do is we need to set aside space for problem solving as business owners. I'll talk to you in a really practical way about how to do that. But a lot of times the root cause of a problem in our company is not obvious. It may feel obvious. What's like we keep having this repetitive error in production. Okay. Well, what's the root cause of the repetitive error? Is it an issue with supplies? Is it that you have a wrong person in the wrong seat? Maybe like this person's just not capable of getting it done. Maybe it's the right person in the right seat, but your operations core process that you've written down is terrible. And so they're following it, but it's producing a bad result, right? It could be any number of things, but my point is we take time to identify, okay, what's the real root here? Then we workshop solutions until we have an absolutely crystal clear action plan. Okay, these are all the things we're going to do to solve this problem this week, this quarter. Does everybody understand? Does everybody agree? Right? I think when you get a great group of folks together trying to really solve problems, it's exciting. So I think that's a key thing to think about that a great company does, and it's a place we want to evaluate. How am I doing on solving problems, and how do I know if I'm solving them or not? It's the same problems exist year after year. If that's the case, quarter after quarter, the same problems exist. I'm not doing a good job. Maybe my company could do better in solving problems. Okay, this all leads to our final point here. We're wrapping up, which is traction. So what is traction? It is the place where execution and accountability meet up in your company. Traction, right? It is where the rubber meets the road. Right. So what we want to do is we want to create a rhythm within your company that requires the convergence of execution and accountability. How do we do that? First, high-performing businesses learn to live in what we call the 90-day world. I'll explain what I mean by that, but the idea is that human beings can focus for about 90 days before they get distracted or bored. There's good research on this, right? And you can just think about your New Year's resolutions. January, I'm excited. In February, it's cool. In March, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. April, boring. I'm over that. Let's do something new, right? And so 90 days is about what we can focus on. So every 90 days in the company, we take one full day for the leadership team or the whole team or just you, if you're a solopreneur, to stop working in the business and work on the business. So if you look at my calendar right now, you'll see I have a quarterly whole day set aside once a quarter. So for one full day, we review the company vision. That was number one. Is it still aligned? What do we think about it? What do we want to adjust? In other words, every 90 days, I metabolize my vision. I remind myself, where am I going and why? Right? I remind everybody on my team, where are we going and why? right? So it sure ensures people are locked in on the vision. And then we look at the 1 year goals that we set for ourselves. And right, if you remember those 1 year goals, they flowed from the 3 year picture we created, which flowed from the 10-year vision, right? So we're actually creating something that's lining up. It's taking us where we want to be, right? And once I'm looking at those 1 year goals, I ask myself, what are the 3 to 7 key strategic objectives for the next 90 days? Right? In other words, if this is all that happens, uh, we'll feel excited about it. From there, we set up a weekly meeting, and every week for 90 days, we check in on just the goals, we check in on the scorecard, and we use most of that meeting to solve problems. What's going to keep us from hitting this goals? It creates a rhythm, it creates traction, and it works. I'm going so fast, y'all, because we're going to run out of time. Here's what I want to give you. I have a scorecard. It's helpful. I don't know about y'all. I love to get a score. I love to be evaluated. I love to get a grade. What it's going to do is it's going to score you overall as a company, and it's going to score you on each of these key 6 domains. After you take it, check your email. It's going to send you a very thorough guide with practical steps of what you can do to improve your scores and the areas you need it the most. It will come to your email. It's a great resource. I'll share this with y'all.